Hello, my fellow Alaskans. How are we all doing out there on this bright and beautiful day? It is time for you guys all to like and share this video. We are about ready to get started here at the Alaska School of Government and to listen to the candidates in their candidate forum and answer the question of the constituents out here in the audience today. Please like and share. Make sure that you notify as many people as possible. The more informed you are about the candidates, the easier it is for you to be able to cast your vote when it matters. And for a lot of elections going around our state right now, October 3rd is going to be the magical day. And then we have like the assembly and school board that here in the valley that will also be happening in November. But you got your local elections like in Wasilla that's already happening here on October 3rd, where you got the mayor and a few other candidates there running for city council. It's happening all over the state, Juneau, Fairbanks, everywhere. Make sure you like this video, share this video, and if you feel fortunate enough or generous enough to want to send me some stars, if you're on Facebook, send me some stars. You can find this everywhere, and while you're also out there having some fun, please go to our website, Politadick.com, and make sure you click that support button.
How's everyone doing? Obviously, I'm not Edna. I'm Barry, pastor here at Real Life Church, and because it's an assembly election talk, Edna just didn't want to breach anything and make sure that there was no showing of favoritism or anything, so she asked if I would host tonight, and so we're not going to break stride from what we normally do, so if you stand, we're going to open in prayer, and then we'll do the pledge.
Let's pledge our allegiance to your God before you pledge allegiance to a flag. Heavenly Father, you're the God of the Bible. You're light. Your word is truth. And we're here as individuals acknowledging you, and now we're here as a group acknowledging you. And we ask you to be our witness tonight, that our ideas are truthful, that our ideas are defending good against evil. And we thank you for all of the ways that you have given us your truth that allows a community and a nation and a state to be representing you under God. And with that in mind, with a thankfulness, we're gathering here tonight to hear ideas about leaders that wish to represent and do what they call is good. So convict us, Father, as we are here to listen. Convict the speakers that they represent the highest truths. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray this. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, let's stay standing for the pledge.
Will you face the flag, please? I'll read the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You can be seated. Well, if we could, we can have the candidates come forward. So what we're going to do is have them come. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about why they are running, and then I've got a couple questions to start them off, and then if you guys have questions for the candidates, Jessica will be over here with the mic, and then we can do the same thing we normally do and just ask questions from this side. So, come on up, guys. We've got two mics, so you can pass those around. If you hit that button once, the mute comes off. There you go. Good, thank you. Like that one's testing. There we go. There we go. So if you could, just introduce yourselves and give us a quick why you're running for office, and then we'll go from there, and then I'll ask you a couple questions, and we'll go from there. Okay.
I guess I'll start here. Hey guys, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kerby Coman. I come from a big family of, I got I got 8 other siblings. I grew up, born in Nikiski, spent about 10 years in California. I've been all over the state since '03. Did some commercial fishing, worked in the oil field as a roughneck, did some seismic surveying, and then I pursued my own local business that I'm currently operating. My mission, I'll give you a little bit of my stance on things. I'm pro-life, I'm a born-again Christian, pro-Second Amendment, pro-First Amendment. I'm wanted to get in the assembly to really accomplish a few things. I'm not there to fill a seat. I don't see myself terming out there. One thing I would love to do is completely do away with property tax and put in place a local borough-wide sales tax in its place. If you guys want to get into some technicalities or questions as far as numbers, I came prepared to answer some questions on that. The second thing I would love to do is claim the MatSu Borough as a constitutional safe haven, protecting our citizens' constitutional rights, and how I would do that. Also, would be happy to answer any questions on kind of my mission on doing so. And then my third agenda item would just be to reduce spending and government regulations. So once again, thank you, Edna, for inviting us here, and that's a little bit about myself. Look forward to the questions.
First guy gets to choose the next guy. All right.
Thanks, Kerby. My name is Stafford Glashan. First came to the Valley in 1994. You can read the story about it. My wife and I fell in love with the Valley. Been in the MatSu Valley as permanent resident since 1997. Raised our daughter through the schools here. Went through a lot of the school board issues, the moving boundaries as the Valley was growing crazy. We didn't move, but the boundaries would move. Those types of things. I'm a professional engineer. By trait and personality, I like to solve problems. I spent 6 years on the Planning Commission. Really got a feel for, we had a lot of public meetings. We heard a lot from the residents of District 6 of the Valley on things that were affecting them, and a lot of people stood up when those things came close to them. And I don't think as District 6 as a whole, we understand how many hundreds and thousands of people we heard stand up with the same issues over and over, because it was 10 people at this meeting, 50 people at this meeting, but they never got to interact. But on the Planning Commission, I got to see them all for 6 years. If anybody was at the Planning Commission, I'm sure Mr. Coman heard me say it, I'm never going to run for public office. It's not in me. But got to the point where I really felt like it was my duty. I feel like I'm a good listener. I'm good at solving problems. I feel like we can do better planning for the future of the Valley, especially with some of our transportation projects. We all drive down Bogard. We see the Engstrom problem could have been totally prevented with planning. Instead, we're spending money to fix something that could have been avoided. But again, I'm here to listen and represent and hopefully help the Valley, make the Valley and District 6 a better place in the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Hi, my name is Jackson Abney. I've lived in Alaska for 12 years. I wasn't born here, but 12 years has been the majority of my life, given that I'm only 19, I turned 20 in October. I know that's a concern for a lot of people that I'm so young, but I think to me, that gives me a special ability to still be able to change my viewpoints on various things and listen to people well. I started running, initially I was actually running for school board because of my entire family's been in education since I was born. That's just been their career path. But there was another representative that shared the same values that I did, so I figured I could make a difference on the assembly in our community. Just to listen to the people in our community as a majority, to try to get their voice out there. Now I also have opinions. School has always been a big funding issue, in my opinion, to get more funding out to them in any way possible. But, sorry, I'm honestly a terrible public speaker. But yeah, I'm here to listen to the problems that the community has as a whole and try to address them as good as possible, or as well as possible. I'm a software developer by, that's what I do for a job, really. And our biggest issue is solving problems and creative, thinking out of the box for solutions. Yeah, I look forward to hearing any questions that you have and ideas and any problems that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. My name is Dimitri FONOV. I am currently in the assembly seat for District 6. I've been appointed where we applied alongside with Kerby in January, and then in February, that's when I started actively already being on that assembly. And since then, we've done a lot of good things there. But just background for me, I was 11 years old when my family immigrated here from Central Asia. Also come from a big family of 9 children. Have 8 siblings besides me, close to 40 nephews and nieces. And my dad has now 45, 47 grandkids and about 20 great-grandkids. We lived in MatSu Valley and specifically in Wasilla now for 27, almost 28 years. All of our family is still here, and each of us does different kind of way as far as line work goes. I'm a general contractor by trade. I operate equipment, and this is what I do. Since I've gotten involved in assembly, my productivity on the job site has slowed down because I've dedicated a lot of time to residents that call and to reach out to me with different kind of issues. And I try to give them proper time so that they can express their concerns, and whether it's a flooding in their street or whether it's something else, a mailbox that is broken, I personally get a lot of different people that reach out with these kind of things, and you take one at a time and you go and help them resolve their issues. I'm glad to share the stage with you guys. I'm glad to have my wife, who's also sitting in the back over there. I have 5 children that they're also in the charter public school, part of MatSu Borough, and I'm also focused, and I'm also careful about how my kids are being educated, and me as a parent, make sure that I have a right to decide as far as what they're being taught and what they're being exposed to. And I think it's important that we as parents are very involved. I'm big on having a complete family in place so that the kids can grow up with the fathers and the mothers, because that's ultimately the best school. It starts at home. And this is my focus personally, to being a good example to my children before they go to school. So by the time they go to kindergarten, so that they already have a solid base of a family of faith, and just being a decent people, and then hopefully continue to be an example throughout their life so that they can see all the good things and continue to treat others as they would like to be treated. And we are here for you guys.
All right, guys, thank you for that introduction of who you are and why you're running. So I have a question for you just to kind of get the ball rolling. What would be, if you get elected, what would be one piece of legislation that you would like to see get passed, you'd like to sign up on? What would you like that to be? Like, what would be your first order of business?
Yeah, somebody specific, or is that?
That's for each of you.
Yeah.
So could you clarify, you're talking about
So if you get elected,
existing legislation that's working through, or just any legislation that would affect borough code?
I think you could have it either way, just something that you feel like you want to push through and what you'd want to be a part of.
I'll take it.
Yeah, so you heard me talk about replacing property tax with a local borough-wide sales tax. Multiple pros. You see, the only con is going to be that, hey, you're spending more at the grocery store or your consumer goods here in the valley. A lot of the pros, one, we're going to be starting to, we'll be intaking out of borough money that's traveling through. Us being a highway town, there's a lot of people come through that spend money that we would capture that and help fund the borough. Would make housing more affordable, not only for landowners but also renters. It gives you a loyal title to the piece of property you own. I know I have relatives that bought their property 50 years ago in Anchorage and now can hardly afford on their retirement salary can hardly afford just the taxes that it's costing them every single month. So if I believe that if you're allowed to be taxed on something, you never really own it. So removing the property tax and to give you an idea, the physical budget for property tax projected budget was 116 million, I believe. If you took the GDP of the MatSu Borough, which is 2.6 billion, this was based off an economist survey a few years back. Take 5% of that, that's 130 million. So we could be, you know, not only would it substantially afford what's coming in property tax, but we could do some, you know, forward budgeting and being able to save funds there. So that's one big piece. It's probably the biggest piece I'm running on. My biggest platform piece is that, you know, I would really like to do with property tax. Once again, you know, more affordable housing. Also, it would encourage people to grow their own and vegetables and have their own farming, because, you know, you're spending less at the store, which is I would highly encourage anyway. So that's one piece of legislation that I would love to see passed. And regardless of if I get elected into the seat, I do plan on taking this to the assembly to see how far I can get with that. So that's one piece. You guys ready for number two? Okay.
I'd like to continue working with the Conservative School Board. There's been a great change in the last several years. They want to continue protect the sports, whether it's boys sports, girls sports. They want to protect just how their kids are being educated. And as assembly, over 70% of borough taxes, they go to the school board. So a lot of people don't realize, but that's more than half, or actually almost 3/4 of property taxes go to the school board. And we're doing better than other areas of state, but I believe we have a lot that we can improve on. One of the things, when recently the Houston High School was built, brand new school, they've put a lot of vocational training, and that's something I fully support. And as a borough, I want to continue working with them, so that is provided so that the kids out of high school, they already have things that they can go to work right away. Even if for whatever reason, if they decide not to pursue further education, or that way that they have skill that is practical to earn comfortable living, or at least a starting wage, and then expand in that profession further, because it's not guaranteed just because they're going to go to college for 4 years that whatever they're going to decide study that's what's going to be their profession, but they might lose a lot of money, get a lot of debt, and so continue to provide that partnership with the school board is important to me. Like I said, I do have kids in my own, in my family I have 5 kids, and they are attending immersion charter school for Fronteras, which is bilingual school, so encourage more programs like that, so that the kids and the parents have options where the kids go, and ultimately when we have a healthy families, we have a healthy community.
For me, probably get some fixes done to rural roads would be a big problem. I know a few people, this was like a personal story that I encountered about a month ago. I went to take somebody home from a D&D session that we were playing, and I had to go down their road, and it was so full of potholes that I almost snapped my axle going down their road. And they told me a story because of that, about how they call 911, and the first thing they're asked is there shooting? And if they say no, they just get hung up on. Nobody goes out there. And it's often told to them because of the road. They can't get the cars out there without damaging them, which limits then the police fleet if they do damage them. So we need to get those roads repaired so that not only can we get services down there to them, but they can get their vehicles in and out without damaging them. So that's one of my big importances.
I believe the specific question was about legislative matters that we bring forward and new ordinances, but I'll follow suit. I agree with what Dimitri said. We need more opportunities in our schools. My daughter was one of the first kids in the Spanish immersion program that helped establish the Fronteras Charter School. My wife and I spent a lot of time, a lot of public meetings, helping getting that ball rolling. We spent a lot of money getting the school district to understand that there's a different way to educate kids that's still within the framework. As far as specific legislation coming up before the Assembly, the Water Body Setback Advisory Board certainly is going to have impacts on a lot of properties. That's due before the Assembly next year. There's a working group that's going to be established tomorrow night. It'll be very interesting because it's going to not only address apparently existing properties that are in violation of the water body setbacks, but what those water body setbacks might be in the future, which has a huge impact on the quality of life in the valley. Nobody likes to be out on Finger Lake or one of these lakes and see a mansion 10 feet from the water. It's not good for the water, it's not good for the lake, it's not good for a lot of things. There's reasonable accommodations that can be made, but I think that's going to be a pretty key piece of upcoming legislation that's going to affect the valley for a long time. From listening to residents that I've been talking to, infrastructure is a really big thing, which Jackson brought up. Our roads need more work, but infrastructure isn't just building and maintaining roads. There's opportunities that we're missing for different types of infrastructure. Through federal excise taxes on the guns and ammunition that we all buy, there's a huge pot of money sitting out there at the state, at Fish and Game, for projects for things like docks, for trail access, for trailheads that require matching money that is not federal or state. And the borough has had a lot of trouble coming up with the 10% match for these projects. Recent projects, the new boat launch at Lake Louise was largely funded through those excise taxes. I see that as a great opportunity to increase opportunities for youth and everyone for fishing and hunting access, that for $1.09, we can make the borough a much better place in you know, not just District 6, but everywhere, because when we recreate, we do go to different parts of the borough, and I think we need to work together to take advantage of those opportunities.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for that. So my next question would be, if you would have been elected in this last session, what would be one vote, a way that you would have voted that would have been a different outcome, you know, for the Assembly? So something that you saw that they voted on that you were like, I don't agree with it, I would have voted the other way. Was there one specific standout thing?
It probably would have been when they interviewed me and they picked Dimitri. Just kidding. No, shoots. You know, honestly, I'm not gonna be shy here, or you know, I'll let you know. I'm in the cannabis industry, and for me, it was the Assembly had voted on banning on-site consumption locally, pending, you know, a field sobriety test that can pick up on marijuana, right? That was something that I would have voted against, but was voted for. So, yeah.
Yeah. I believe that failed 6-1, so that wouldn't have made a difference because there was a lot of, so that result would have stayed the same. In on-site consumption, I personally don't smoke and never smoked pot, so that industry is foreign to me, but I've picked up hitchhikers that smell heavily like that, and their reaction to when I ask them a question about any subject, it was very, very delayed. And I was almost sometimes thinking, why does it take him 30 seconds before he can answer a simple question? But so on-site consumption, why I voted against it and because if alcohol has a measuring thing that we can have a portable device to measure, there isn't a standard, there isn't a formula. So at that time, the lady that spoke in favor for it, she said, well, if we let the bartenders decide when to cut off people off from consuming alcohol, that's the same principle that's going to work. I personally don't see it like that. I do think there is a lot further consequences that could have came with that, and but that's the reason why I voted for that.
So, really, before I graduated, it was before I graduated even that the last election was held. So, I didn't have a ton of attention that I was paying really until probably 4 months ago for this. I don't think there's anything in particular that I saw that I probably would have voted for differently.
So I'm not sure I can just keep it to one. I agree with Dimitri. My time on the Planning Commission, I really had a hard time understanding on-site consumption, and it was from a public safety standpoint. You know, like he pointed out, with alcohol, there's an objective standard, there's a blood standard. I was concerned about public safety and trying to enforce those standards for on-site consumption. I'd say that I would have voted against the changes to the gravel extraction ordinance, but the mayor vetoed that, so my vote wouldn't have really made a difference. I think the one thing I would have voted different on was the free landfill days that are going on. And it's not because I don't think we need to give residents an opportunity to clean up their properties. People who can't afford it, who have inherited perhaps a property from a parent that was a hoarder, has just kind of an overwhelming mess to get through. But I believe that it could have been done differently and it could have been planned. And if it was that important, the budget was just approved a couple of months ago. This was not in the approved budget. It came up after the budget cycle, after the budget was set. At the end of the year, the landfill and the borough need to balance expenditures and income. And now we're going to start out with a several $100,000 hole in the landfill budget. And the way to make that up is by cutting services somewhere else. So something's going to get cut for that when it could have been a program that could have been planned for just a few months ago.
I'll respond to that because I did vote in favor for the cleanup, and I know personally I've talked to people that taken advantage and hauled a lot of trash that they wouldn't have had that not been passed. This is the first time that we tried it, and so far we've had tons and tons, I don't know exact number, that's been, community benefited from that. I think it motivated them to get it clean out, and if anytime when you have anything that you implement the first time, it's not as perfect. There's things that a lot of moving parts, but so far those people who planned ahead and loaded their trailers, they came out there in the morning. I had some people that said they only had to wait 8 minutes in line, other ones that had to wait a lot longer. So I'm strong about cleaning up the valley, and there is a lot of people that have a lot of stuff, and hopefully by doing what we did, even though it is costing us money, but ultimately cleans up our community. And then if we decide to do that future again, there would be a lot of that trash has been already taken out, because this is not the trash that people have the container on the other side of the road with a 96-gallon container. Those are not the trash that's been taken out. Those are the different type of trash that people taken out to really clean up their yards, garages right before the winter, and I commend people for doing that, and I'm happy that I supported that.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your, do you want to rebuttal that?
May I get a rebuttal? I don't know the rules. If not...
Well, we were really just trying to answer that one question, and Dimitri kind of jumped out there and do that, so I'll give you just 30 seconds.
I'll keep it brief. So just for a little history going back, we used to have free dump days, and people that have been here for a long time remember how it went. It was 1 or 2 Saturdays, and it was a fiasco. People were down at the dump face, there was fist fights, people gathering different stuff. And so years ago, back in the 90s, the landfill and the MatSu Borough decided, let's spread this out over the year. Let's make it so people can come at their convenience, not have the additional cost of extra staff, all this stuff that's going on. Now I agree, over the years, that $8 coupon has become pretty worthless. But there are other ways that, again, could have been done in a planned manner. More value to the coupon, working specifically with individual property owners who have a problem that's significant, which the solid waste department has done in the past and currently does. This just seemed unplanned, I guess is what it is. I think there's great ways to do it. I'm not against the cleanup. I'm fully for cleaning the valley, helping residents do it in a cost-effective way. I just think that with better planning and interaction with the departments, it could have been done better.
Well, thank you again for your comments. Okay, now is audience participation and asking questions. So if you have a question, if you could see Jessica there at the front and remember to be kind in your questionings.
Are all of you doing this as a jumping board to maybe get into Juneau?
I can speak for myself. I believe that door opened for me. Where I'm at right now, I'm serving the community and my district very faithfully. I do not currently have any plans or discussion with anyone that I ever expressed to running for a different position.
I have no intention in going any higher in government. This is as high as I ever want to go.
I had no intention of running for office. I certainly have no intention of living in Juneau. I lived a snow machine. Being down there from January to April would probably kill me. But I'll never say never. I really, at this time, honestly can say, at this point, I'm not planning it. I have not thought of it, but I don't know what the future brings.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Honestly, I wouldn't using this as a stepping stone, but yeah. So I would say that's not my intention, although it might be down the road, something to run for a higher office, but I would like to get in to the assembly and accomplish what what I'm running on. And then if there's something else that comes up that, my constituents are raising to my concern, and then try to accomplish that too. But so to answer your question, it's a no for me at this time.
Okay. Dimitri, I'd like to say something to you. Being a foreigner, I'm a foreigner. I came to America in 1960, and that's one thing I appreciate are the foreigners that come here, because I have noticed that they are the ones that fight more for America. They're the ones that appreciate America more than I've seen a lot of Americans do. Not saying that any of you don't, but I appreciate you serving because you know what it's like to be in another country, or your family knows what it's like to be in another country, and the difference between that country and America.
I sincerely appreciate that comment, and it's personal to me because when I was a kid, being a minority, being white, and being Christian inside of the Muslim country, it was difficult where I physically had rocks thrown at me because, and it was called names because of that. So when we came here, not knowing a single word of English, it was difficult to first be part of the middle school. Middle school was a difficult age to start the school at when you don't know English, or maybe you don't have the cool sneakers or the proper clothes. But that's actually helped me to be stronger, to grow as a young man at that time, and as a father now further. And whatever that experience have brought me, I'd like to utilize that to help the community.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question?
We're starting to inherit the homeless problem that is migrating from out of Anchorage. We have them actually being bussed out here with one-way destinations from Anchorage. This came up last year during one of the homeless coalition meetings that was held at the school board there in Palmer. And there's rumors that the municipality, not so much as in for the borough here and the MatSu, but places like in Palmer are looking to start putting in some of the homeless camps or rules that they have applied in Anchorage. Where do you guys each individually stand on that happening out here in the valley? And what do you think we should be doing to address that issue? The other thing that I have to say is we've watched our borough taxes, it appears, on what we're paying for our properties. We keep hearing that the mill rate has been lowered. We're going to see our tax bills being a lot less. And then when I receive my tax notice in the mail, it's more than it was the year before. And I keep hearing the lie that we've lowered your mill rate, but we're paying more. What are you guys willing to do to either address why our taxes keep going up even though we're told the mill rate is going down? And when is the new tax going to be put into place to keep ourselves debt-free here in the valley? What new project do you think we should be investing into next?
Let me start with the homeless thing. I don't want Anchorage to come here, and we don't want to be part of Anchorage. Not regulation-wise, not homeless-wise, and not many other things that they do. So, my position firm, what you do and what kind of programs you create for homeless is what's going to attract them here. So I think we do not want to create incentive for them to come here in first place. There is organizations in place that are faith-based organizations that are doing a good job, but they are ran independent, and there's people that sign up for them, whether they're from a recovery, whether drug addiction or past being just getting out of jail, but they have a very strict criteria that they have to follow. They have to stay clean, they don't have to consume substances. Those are the programs that I fully support because there's accountability going on, and if you don't follow the rules, you get kicked out, and that's so there is that component that I sincerely appreciate, and I personally financially support myself. Teen Challenge, Teen Adult Challenge would be an organization, one of them that I want to give credit how well they're doing. So that's on the homeless side. Tax-wise, you can thank current Democrat administration that in Washington D.C. for the inflation that's causing. However, I will defend that the mill rate has gone down, but because of the inflation overall, the property values have gone up. Because if you would have bought the same house for $200,000 several years back, now the same house is worth $300,000. So basically, if we follow that same formula for inflation, your taxes would be a lot higher. That's why to offset that burden, we've lowered the mill rate as much as we can so that the bill is, in some cases, are very the same. Someone went a little bit down and someone went just slightly up. That's to address the tax question.
Go ahead. As for homeless people, I think we need to, or at least guide people to the right resources for them, not necessarily provide handouts, but connect them to the right resources to get them on the right track, whether that's better vocational training, rehabilitation programs for drug use, alcohol use, gambling, whatever problem led them to their homelessness, so that they can correct that themselves with assistance from an organization that specializes in that. And then I'm hoping that would help at least somewhat. I think we're always going to have at least somewhat of a problem until, well, I mean, just always is probably going to be partially a problem. But as for taxes, my thought on it is not necessarily to get rid of property tax as a whole, but to lower it and introduce some kind of sales tax, even possibly just part of the year for like tourist season, to catch on all those RVs driving through our town that stop for food or gas or whatnot. So just from like, you know, when season starts in May or April, somewhere in there, and then go through until August-ish. And you know, not anything big, but that should help us lower the taxes we're taking for property and just translate them to a sales tax. I don't know the exact numbers right now, I haven't tried to run them or anything, but that is my theory on the matter, at least.
Yeah, so along with Dimitri, huge proponent of Alaska Adult and Teen Challenge and programs of that sort that help the homelessness and provide the resources to take care of their issues. I have a personal stance on it that, hey, biblically speaking, we should be helping them and do that. But I'm not about to vote on something in the appropriations that'll put that burden on the taxpayer. So definitely would not be taking any tax dollars to appropriate it towards helping with the homelessness. But on a personal stance, definitely feel like we should be helping them out. As far as the taxes, you're always going to see inflation. You're never going to see the country deflate. So your property tax, you can say, hey, when are they going to go back down? They might go down for a little bit, but like I said, looking at Anchorage or anywhere else, property value is going to continue to increase with inflation. So my answer to that is completely just get rid of it. So hopefully that will address that.
Sorry, I'm older than these gentlemen. I need to write down the questions so I remember them here. Homelessness, I wish I had an answer. There's so many issues that drive homelessness. There's certainly alcohol and substance abuse, mental health, and there's a certain population that decides to live that way. My wife works with developmentally disabled people, and one of her clients was homeless. And for her, she preferred to be homeless because the only decision she made, it wasn't substance, it wasn't mental health, it was she had to find a place to sleep and enough to eat, and that was it. And it just simplified her life. And my wife would get her into homes, get her into safe housing, and time again, she'd walk away. I don't know the answer. I think all of America, probably all of the world has struggled with it. We certainly need to help the vulnerable homelessness, the young families with kids, people that for whatever reason have lost a job or on the street, need to get back on their feet. But overall, I don't know, I'd love to hear a problem for homelessness, something to solve it. But I think there's been a lot of things tried and a lot of things that fail, but I don't think we can give up on it. Property taxes, yeah, I agree. My mill rate went down, my house value went up, I'm paying more taxes. I haven't gotten a raise in a couple of years. Everything I buy costs me more money. But I think we need to diversify, perhaps not as radically as eliminating property taxes and going to sales tax, but perhaps there's a component of sales tax that can help offset property tax. Perhaps there's other ways that we can bring in more revenue to the borough, get the port wharfage rates up, get more material coming across the port. We've put a tremendous amount of investment into the port. Let's get more than $140,000 a year in income out of the port, and there's ways to do that. Part of the reason property taxes work in other rural boroughs like the Kenai is they have industrial facilities. So they have the refinery, they used to have Agrium, they've got pipelines where they're generating a lot of tax dollars. Valdez from the TAPS terminal and the pipeline, a lot of their tax dollars comes from that infrastructure that helps support the state of Alaska, great jobs, and then they're able to capture that locally. So that ties into another project which, we always have projects, the big projects, the next big dream. But with the natural gas shortages we're facing in South Central and NSTAR wanting to take lead on the bullet line, that would be something that would come right through the valley. I'm sure you've all seen the maps where the line comes through, roughly parallel the Parks Highway, actually a little closer to my cabin than I'd really prefer to have it. But it runs, a large percentage of that line runs through the MatSu Valley, which gives us better access to gas with the Cook Inlet supplies dwindling and all the opposition to looking for new resources out there, but also would diversify our tax base because now we'd have industrial properties to tax. We get that gas line coming into the port of Port McKenzie, and we start getting liquefaction exports, we get other industries, and it diversifies our tax base so it's not just on the residential property owners.
Sirs, under what circumstances would you consider taken on mail-in voting in order to reduce expenses of the election process? Under what circumstances would you consider reducing, well, let's see, would you consider taking on mail-in voting as a way to reduce the cost of elections?
We are not currently running mail-in voices. There's option for people to get their ballot, to do the ballot, but our majority of voting is through in-person voting.
Sure.
Another thing that is we have brought the cost down is we eliminated the electronic counting machines. So it's a hand count this year around, and hopefully we'll do well. And there's going to be, hopefully we'll have a very good report as far as how honest and up the election was running. But the Borough Assembly, our MatSu Borough, has a pretty good track record as far as the voting.
That's where it has been recently. And will it stay there? So that's the question for the new people coming on. And the question remains, under what circumstances would it be a good idea to take on mail-in voting in order to reduce expenses for elections?
Just to understand, you're saying to change it to mail voting, is that what you're saying, right?
I'm wondering what circumstances would taking on mail-in voting be a good idea?
Okay. My position is the same, that there are people that are not eligible to come in person, disability, whether they fill out a request, they will get that, but I would still encourage in-person voting.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
The answer to the question for me would be that under no circumstances other than being military, but I'm not sure that producing mail-in voting would reduce cost of elections. I might be naive or wrong, but so I think in-person voting is the only way to go, minus our people that are serving out of seas or across country. So.
Yeah, there are certain circumstances where I support mail-in voting. Certainly active duty military, senior citizens, people that have trouble getting out of their house. I do believe that there's something special about going in person to the polls. And, even if you're doing it inside a booth where nobody can see you, showing your ID, showing that you're there. A lot of our voting is done at schools. The kids seeing all the people showing up to vote in person, I think sets a good example for the younger generations. And as far as, I haven't heard a discussion up here, but I remember years ago about, some countries it's mandatory voting. Everybody needs to vote. And when I was young, I thought that was pretty neat, get everybody involved. But, to tell you the truth, I don't think we're best served by everybody voting. I know a lot of you here don't agree with me on a lot of topics. I don't agree with myself a lot of times, or with my wife. That's part of a relationship. But I really think that in order to cast a vote, you should be informed. And I encourage you all to inform yourself about the decisions, about the candidates. If you decide that somebody else would better serve you, I have no problem with that. I hope to get your vote, but it's your vote. So please make it an informed one.
I don't think I'd ever be a proponent of going to an all-mail system. Mail ends up, I think, being probably more expensive, not necessarily for us, but it puts a larger burden on the United States postal system. That paper costs money to print, and then at the end it gets thrown away. It adds waste, and then that does add cost to us, because then our solid waste has to handle that. That's my stance on it. So.
Hi, fellas. Excuse me. Kind of drawing back to the homeless thing. I grew up here, and I remember distinctly there being a thing about panhandling being illegal. Just kind of a cultural thing. Most people would look at it and go, that's not the right way to try to get money. That's not the right way to pull yourself out of a downslope. I always wondered, what happened to that? And my thought is, is that really like a super negative thing to discourage people from putting themselves on the streets every day for hours on end? So that's my question, really.
If I understood the question correctly, you said to continue to discourage people because it was not common before? Please specify it so that I can...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, in my opinion, I didn't think that was such a bad initiative to keep people from engaging in that behavior. And in my opinion, it wouldn't be terrible to bring that discouragement back, saying that it is actually not an arrestable crime, but like you can't sit on the street corner, cause litter, disturbances, traffic, all kinds of other things. And furthermore, it's not an effective means to actually pull yourself out of that lifestyle.
I agreed completely with you. When I was in 95 and I moved to America, to see somebody in a corner somewhere was only if I went to Anchorage. That's the only time I've gotten to see, and even there, it was rare to see, to be sincere with you, on only specific intersections. It was very rarely. I don't remember if that was a thing in the early 2000s, late 90s, around the valley in Wasilla, to be specific. What's sad is that I'm almost like confused is that we have more people standing on the corner, but at those same corners in the stores or restaurants nearby, they want to hire people. So I personally don't give the money, not to incentivize them to continue doing that. I've given food in person before, but I had people denied because they didn't want the food, they wanted money specifically. So therefore, I know where they're not hungry at that time, right?
It's a job, it's not...
Yeah, so especially when you see the same faces over and over, so I would be in favor of local authorities to look into that. But I'm saying there's plenty of jobs around Valley, and they will require very high skill, and I talked to those business owners myself, and they would hire very basic, you don't have to even have the GED, but there's plenty of jobs that they can do. I think that is, I don't want to give them a reason to continue to live that way and encourage them to live off of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't really encourage, I think that you placing a log in somebody, banning them from panhandling, I think that's kind of infringing on their right to do so. But you talked about littering, you talked about loitering or trespassing, something that is prosecutable. I would say that, we could prosecute that or go after them for that. But if somebody wants to stand on a street corner and panhandle, I think that's their constitutional right to do so. But then those that want to give it money, likewise. So that would, that's my stance on that situation there.
Yeah, it goes back to the homeless situation, and Palmer, Fred Meyer, there's a couple of people that sit at the exit and they have a sign and they're just there. I'm sure they're camping back in the woods, squatting on somebody else's property, but they keep it clean. If they're respectful, sometimes certainly you get into people demanding money, and that's not right, whether they have a job or homeless or not. At the same time, traveling, I've got family all over the country. You go to other cities, and some of the best music I've heard is a guy sitting there on a 5-gallon bucket playing his guitar with the case open, and he's just doing it for fun and a few extra bucks for whatever. So it's kind of a complicated issue. As long as it's done respectfully, they're not trespassing. I'd prefer, from my beliefs, I think there's better ways to spend your time to better your life, but their life, it's not my decision.
Yeah, personally, I've experienced those same people that you would call maybe playing music or asking for money on the corner, and then that same evening they go to my property, they start fire, they leave junk over there, and then I've had to clean up multiple dump trucks worth of garbage, and so to almost say, well, they're okay there, but that lifestyle transfers, follows them where they go. I had people at the rental property that wake up in the city of Wasilla on the porch in the morning when the tenant wakes up, and as they're walking to go to work, there's a person sleeping right on their porch. That's not acceptable, but those are the same people that are asking for money there. So my position is continue to stay firm on that. We encourage get them jobs, and if they sincerely want to see change, there's organizations that do good work, but there's also accountability involved in there. And if there's no accountability, just giving or creating any kind of programs are not going to be, they're not going to resolve this problem.
I'm definitely not a fan of banning the practice outright. As long as they're not blocking people directly, or trying to stop people to, demand that they give them money or anything like that, I don't think that we should be prosecuting them or going after them specifically because they're doing it. If we're going to go after them, it should be for other things they're doing that are illegal, whether they're loitering, trespassing. I think maybe having, especially that intersection in Anchorage when you first get there, I know there's often somebody standing there. I think having a statute or something in place for busy intersections, not have them stand there because it's dangerous. And it can be distracting to drivers passing by. But as long as they're not in a location where they're going to be doing harm to individuals, I don't think we should do anything to them, especially if it comes down to arresting them, because then they're just going to be living in a jail cell, and that's more taxpayer money going to feed them and whatnot. So that's my stance on it.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, I'm Jean Holt, and I don't know how to address the question, but we're at a very crucial time in the MatSu Borough with a 20-year comprehensive plan coming up, and also the water body setback that I have followed for 37 years. And I'm disappointed with the MatSu government and how they're handling. We haven't gotten any farther. The only permit we have is a driveway permit. We don't. It's like the Wild West out here. So we have all these people coming from Anchorage and no regulations. They don't. They love it out here. And so how? I know two of you, one was on the planning commission and you're an existing assemblyman right now, so you know what's going on. How are you going to address the importance of this valley with how the borough's taking care of their business? They can't even take care of a variance. So how are you going to put it together? I mean, try to make it a better place instead of no regulations or whatever. We have to come up with something because this place is growing so fast. It's not like it used to be. So I just I know that's such a general question, but well, we better do something. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, not to pass it off on anyone else, but it has a lot to do with the planning commission. But as far as representing my constituents as an assembly member, I think that looking at the 20-year comprehensive plan and looking at listening to your constituents to come up with legislation that will make that do. I'm a little bit more like on the commerce side, as far as I don't know. I think that if I buy a piece of property, I should be able, as long as I'm not harming somebody's public safety, I should be able to do what I want with it. Now there's certain restrictions as far as when you talk about CCRs and stuff like that, when you're moving into a place, or you guys walking around to elect a place to become a place with CCRs. That's something there, but I think that I'm more on the lines of having something that I purchased and I paid for, that I should be able to do what I want with it. Also, while listening to, you know, following local ordinances and setbacks and things of that nature. As far as, you know, the valley is growing. You know, times change. Change is the only constant. You know, it's something that all you could do is talk to your representatives to try to argue your point and get something into legislation to you know, make what you want happen. So I'm willing to listen to anybody to bring up issues and voice those concerns to the assembly. But I think I may be wrong, but I think it's more of a planning commission duty.
In my opinion, there's a lot of regulation on the state level that's going on when it comes to licensing, permitting, and that process, having to go through it myself, is already difficult enough. I don't want Valley to be in the micromanaging residents' life, especially that the state has already addressed those issues. So double licensing or double permitting is not something in favor of. However, I am proud of to encourage people to doing the right thing, whether it's applying free of charge to resolve their driveway permit, to do a landfill, to improve the local park, something that will encourage more family time. Those are the things that I do stand by, and those are the things I voted for in the past and I support.
I think definitely as the valley grows, we have lots of parcels of land that cover areas that shouldn't necessarily be built right next to, and there's specific things that need to be looked at when building new properties, especially. And I think it's beyond just the people that are on the assembly. We need to also listen to the concerns of the community about how things are being done and take those into account. But not only that, but especially there's environmental concerns. We need to listen to our environmental agencies that do these reviews and surveys about what we're building and the consequences that they have on the environment, to create ordinances that reflect the protection of those natural environments.
So, you know, when I bought my first house out here in '97, there was about 30,000 to 35,000 people. We were up with Silafishhook. Literally one day the Army came out and detonated a box of dynamite the kids had found in a field. And there was nobody to be bothered. There was 4 houses. They came around and said, hey, there's going to be a boom. No big deal. That subdivision now, every 1 acre lot in there has a house on it. Some of them have duplexes, some of them have 4plexes, and it's just houses all the way from there. It was off of Pamela Street, all the way down to Bogart. We used to moose hunt in there. You know, the valley has changed. One thing, CCRs were mentioned. Before I was on the Planning Commission, I had no idea that the CCR, the covenants on the land that you buy, is agreed to by the homeowners, but they're not enforced by the borough. So if your neighbor does something that is against the covenants, and you know, most of them out here are pretty reasonable. You can't have more than 20 dogs or 10 horses or whatever, but if they do something against the covenants, you as a landowner need to hire a lawyer and organize the neighbors and start a homeowners association and go through the courts to enforce that. The borough does not protect your land rights as written in the CCRs when you buy your land. And we all have equal land rights. We all have equal right to enjoy our land, but our rights are equal. So if I'm doing something on my property that is negatively impacting my neighbor's enjoyment of that land, that gives me more rights to the property than they have to theirs. And that's not right. And back in '97, there weren't that many of us. It was a very different place. Now, especially in the core area, we're a lot closer together. There's people moving in from Anchorage, from the States, and I admit it, I moved up from Montana. A lot of us are from somewhere else, and there's a lot of different beliefs and a lot of views, people escaping the rigid California, what color you can paint your mailbox, those sorts of things, come out here and think they can do anything. But if they're trying to say their property rights are more important than mine, they're wrong. And on the Planning Commission, I heard that over and over from people coming in, saying that, you know, this is not compatible with our residential neighborhood, whatever it was. And it was conditional use permits, so it may have been gravel extraction, it may have been a marijuana facility, it may have been a junkyard. But I believe that we need to stand up and we need to protect our own and our neighbors' property rights. And a lot of that does come in at the Planning Commission with conditional use permits, but I think there's other things we can do to continue to protect all of our property values and our enjoyment of our own property.
Hello, sorry, was I supposed to introduce myself? We don't want my name. Okay, it's a question concerning the cities, and it's for all four of you, but it's listed by your comments about the sales tax. Mr. Kerby Coman, I hope I got your last name right. Okay, yes. Well, right now the city of Wasilla has 0 city property tax, and one of the attractions for people coming to the city of Wasilla is that they don't have to pay the borough service tax. When we're talking about saying that you all agree that suddenly we all have just a sales tax and no property tax in the borough, how would you deal equitably with the cities of Wasilla and Palmer and Houston when they are taking care of those services? You know, we're taking care of a lot of the services. That's why we have that break in the property tax. So yes, I'd like to know how you would handle that.
Yeah, I had thought about a couple different versions. One version is to only inside the cities would be a lesser tax rate, so maybe like a 2% tax rate on top of their 3% tax rate. So that was one version I looked at. I haven't really come up with something concrete until I'm able to dig deeper into the numbers and really see, you know, substitutions and see how much their tax revenues are and things of that sort. So definitely something that I will be diving deeper into and coming up with a concrete answer. But that was one possibility that I had thought was a good compromise of, you know, reducing the tax inside the cities because they're not utilizing as much borough money as you know, other areas are. So
I'm running on the no new taxes, and if I can, I'm going to want to reduce the taxes that we're already paying. So to create any new additional taxes is not a question for me. However, if our economy keeps growing, we do continue to expand the building, the infrastructure, encourage new businesses to come. However, that will bring more revenue, and based on that, I want to encourage the easier for businesses to start new businesses, to run their businesses, to build new warehouses, so that, and equally as to residents, to bring the same property taxes, continue to bring that in so that we have more revenue.
So we need to diversify our tax base, whether it's through the types of industries we attract to the valley and keep it property taxes, or one thing I've thought about, and again, this is my thought, I haven't talked about it with many constituents, because that hasn't really been the main issue that they've been bringing to me when I visit with them. But I thought about stealing a page from the city of Wasilla when they implemented a sales tax that was specifically tied to, originally it was bond projects for the wastewater treatment plant. And we could do something like that with the bond projects that are coming up on in the next election for roads, that we implement a borough-wide sales tax of 0.5% or whatever the number is, that automatically sunsets when those bonds are paid off. So then that money goes away. It's only used to pay for those road bonds, doesn't affect our property tax values. And it may not just be road bonds, it may be a way of raising money for some other new venture that can diversify our economy, bring better jobs, and also diversify our tax base.
Yeah, that was also something I thought about in the past. It came from, the only reason I thought about it is because we had this mayor come and talk to our class when he did that, or when that went through. So I did consider that as an opportunity. But for introducing like a borough-wide sales tax, my thought was to do a reduced rate for the borough tax within cities, to try to maintain the same tax rate or tax fairness that we do now for the cities, since they do use a lesser amount of borough funding.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. This is a question that I'm going to address to Mr. Abney specifically, and then I would welcome comments from you other three after Mr. Abney answers my question. Mr. Abney, when you first filed your APOC letter of intent to run for office, you filed for school board seat, and I read that with some interest. I'm not a Facebooker myself, but I had some friends in the Facebook post you made. And the reason I'm asking this question, it tells me a little bit about the policy that you would bring forth to the MatSu Borough. And for me personally, it tells a little bit about your character. It speaks to me. One of the posts you posted on Facebook when you were going to run for school board, you made it quite clear that you were not happy with some of the policies that this school board had brought forth. Now, I understand you're an assembly candidate, but the assembly does have influence on the school board, and I think you assembly members know that, because he who controls the purse string has a little bit of power, and the assembly must appropriate money to the school district, which is 70% of our budget. But let me get back to the question, Mr. Abney. You kind of came against the policies that the school board had brought against the transgender males into our school district, and you say you support a person's right to identify as they choose. And I don't disagree with that, except in policy in our schools, if you're saying you support a person's right to identify, that means that you're quite willing to let males that identify as females back into the locker rooms and to the restrooms in our schools. I am adamantly opposed to that. I have 3 great-granddaughters, and my job is to protect them. I'm one of their protectors that's demanded by God. I totally disagree with that. Now that you're running for assembly, will you bring that policy and that policy agenda and try to push that down on the school board? That's my question to you. Please answer that, and then I'd like the other 3 to weigh in on that. Thank you.
I don't have any intention to try to influence the school board too much from the assembly, other than the only influence I intend to at any way try to push onto the school board is the amount that their superintendent currently makes financially. He makes quite a bit per year, and that's quite a large portion of their budget. Last I saw, I think it was close to, or a little over $200,000 a year, which I think is excessive for a superintendent. That's pretty close to what our governor makes a year. That's the only policy that I intend to try to influence from the assembly, as it is directly financial. And as far as the policy, when I said it for the school board, that was from my personal experience talking to people I know who have changed their gender assignment and the way they feel personally about it. I, of course, at any point would have loved to have heard the general community's opinion on it before trying to enact that policy if it wasn't what the majority was wanting to hear at the time.
Just to follow up, Abney, how many genders are there?
Legally assigned, there are 2 separate genders.
So if that's what it's legally and that's how we have 2 bathrooms, that's how it very clear to me. So if Mr. Ron wants to follow up with anything specific, but I wanted to specify that and get that on the record, because I believe there is 2 genders. I believe before our kids were born, we already know if it's boy or girl, so it's very simple for me. I believe historically, going back, biblically, it's very clear. So for me, I will protect the girls and boys equally, and that's what it's going to be. And if somebody feels differently each day, well, maybe they have to go see specialists to address that issue.
Yeah, so to address the question, it's a good question, and I know that our nation is heavily infiltrated with all sorts of nasty stuff and evil in our schools. So I actually had thought about it a couple weeks ago about withholding some funds from a certain school for anybody that allows the LGBTQ movement, or drag queen story hour, or pushing pornography through our libraries, things of that sort. So it's a huge issue for me. I know that our school board, for me, we homeschool our children. I grew up homeschooling, Christian based. It's definitely what I would suggest. I don't have an issue with people that are whatever they want to identify as, but that's not something that needs to be taught in our schools or has any place in politics or in our schools or in children's to be forced on them in any way. So I do think that, for those that are homeschooling, I think that there should be the same amount of funds and avenues for them just as much as there's for people that are going to public school. But definitely that's what, we've made the decision to homeschool our children for reasons like that. And it's definitely something that, should be more vocalized and give more public opinion at the school board meetings. It's crazy what's going on in the schools these days.
Yeah, it's tough. As an assembly member, I really view the assembly as listening to the voices of the people in the District 6 and doing our best job to set policies and to set the vision for the assembly and for the borough as an entirety of where we want to go in the future. The details on some of those things, like what goes in Parks and Rec budget and controlling the purse strings, yes, we have budgetary responsibilities, which, controlling the purse strings, you can control some of the message if you really want to. But I believe it's up to the people in the departments in the school district to implement those policies. Transgender, I don't know, I'm a little bit older, I don't have grandkids, I read about it, I don't understand it. I have a gay brother, and I know that he struggled his whole life through high school. And it was obvious, even my dad, who was a Vietnam vet and a hard-nosed guy, knew that he was probably gay from a very young age. I don't know how, I don't know why. My dad accepted him as one of Jesus's children and loved him just the same. And there are details on the transgender thing which are different, which I think can be solved with separate bathrooms. And, certainly you can't have people that were born a man competing in women's sports. It ruins women's sports. There needs to be something different. What that answer is, I have no idea. But I'm sure as reasonable people, we can come up with solutions to help, in a lot of these cases, which kids that are probably pretty troubled and pretty alone, and help them find what they need to become productive members of the society, however they end up dressing.
All right, I think that will conclude our question and answer time. We do have, guys, thank you. If you give them a hand for coming and being here. Thank you, guys. I do know we have an announcement from COVID Alliance. Is that correct? Did I say that correctly?
I think he left.
He left. Okay. Well, that shortens that announcement.
I'd like to.
I actually like to thank all the candidates here. I personally do. This was a very good setting. I believe we had very fair questions. None of them were prepared. None of them was scripted. I appreciate the transparency that we had. I want to say that I encourage all of you guys to talk to us personally, get to know us. I hope to earn your vote just as equally probably these men do, but this was a good setting to do it, and I hope we answered your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Any other announcements for the night?
Here's the forms if you want to do hand count for the Valley, volunteer. You just fill this form out, take it down to the borough office, and we'll see the clerk. And right here is the little scan codes. If you want to get on and get, it's Mike Lindell, and then it's got Frank's speech. You don't get an account with Frank's speech, and then go over to Frank's social, and you can sign up for Cause of America Alaska, and it talks about our elections. All the information's there.
All right. Well, I'll close us in prayer.
There's a paper back here, it looks like, from the COVID Alliance people.
Okay.
So I don't know what the announcement was, but it's sitting here.
Okay, if you want more information on the COVID Alliance symposium that's happening here, I think in October, it'd be great to take a look at that. All right, I'll pray and dismiss us. Father, I thank you so much for this night. I thank you just for being here and being amongst us in sometimes tough questions and answers, and we just thank you for your goodness. Keep over us and watch us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Alrighty folks, thank you guys all for being here. If you have not liked and shared this video, why not? You should have already done that already. That is the only way we're going to be able to keep people informed on where we are going in our elections, knowing who to vote for, who not to vote for. The very last question at the very end of this, I think, was very enlightening for a lot of Alaskans if you are looking for someone to vote for. And there was other questions. There were several really good pointed questions out there that was asked of our candidates, and I look forward to your guys' response in the comments of what you thought of them. Like and share this video. Go to our website, politadick.com. Click that support button. All proceeds go right back into expanding what we do. We can't wait for the new legislative session to get active, and we can really start going gun-ho for down there in Juneau. And due to vacation, well, I shouldn't say vacation, but due to family issues, I will be gone during the next couple of weeks in the month of October. It'll probably be the last 2 weeks of October, and won't be doing any more candidate things during that process. So please, if you see something, share, just like this video, share it. We will see you guys all the next time. Thank you for being here tonight, and we will see you the next time we are live.